us on.
Here you are.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. This is the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Thursday, February 7th, 2019. Just want to let you know that our chairman, Mr. Keep, is under the weather a bit, so I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. First up is our town administrator report.
All right, leading off with the town administrator report, that is a first. Nothing really new to report on Minuteman other than the project continues to progress. We haven't had a building committee meeting since our last selectmen's meeting. We have one coming up in another week or two, so I should have an update for us on the 28th, but no issues that I'm aware of. That is not a lie detector.
Round two.
Get out the towel.
Next, the update on the Portico project. All back guano has now been removed.
It's not a pseudonym for any, or what do you call it?
Right.
Metaphor for anything.
Or any kind of code word.
Not speaking in code, it could be a metaphor, but it's
Very literal.
there is some asbestos remaining. We're getting a final design for the shoring and the reframing, I'm sorry. And depending on what that looks like, we may not have to abate quite as much as we thought we would, because if there's some that won't be disturbed, then we'll just leave it.
Cool.
So what we're looking at is a max change order of probably $1,800.
Cool.
We're getting that, we're working through that, and we'll once that design is complete, which should be any day now, we'll get to the asbestos. Although, if it looks like nothing's moving, partially it's because nothing is moving, but as we're doing the asbestos and the other stuff, we've been restricting it to Fridays when the employees aren't here, which is why you're seeing sporadic work.
Good.
Okay.
The only employee that's here generally on Fridays is me, and I can take it. Next update on the survey. At the last meeting that we discussed, or the proposed survey, the last meeting where this was discussed, I said that I would take it back to the staff meeting to get some input from the staff. Got some thoughts on it. I have spoken with colleagues in Carlisle, Lincoln, Berlin, Lancaster, Harvard, Lunenburg, Stowe, and a couple other colleagues I can reach out to, but that's what I've done so far to try to get a sense for how they have approached things. So I have a pretty good sense of, with the communities that I've spoken with, I think that's 7, the ones that have done surveys, how they've approached them. I've got a little input from the staff, so that's where things stand at this point.
Well, did any of the, I think one of the things that Jonathan had asked for was, are there any pressing things that any department heads, need to ask for community input on at this point in time? Other than the obvious ones like, we're dealing with 117 and, we've got, we're going out for engineering, we're doing the thing at Water Aquatic, so we've got that pretty much under control.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of feedback on 117 and roads in general. I mean, the DPW, Joe, when he was gathering his comments for
Complete streets.
Complete Streets, thank you. He had the Wiki app, and he got over 400 hits on that. So we got a lot of feedback on roads. I think we're good there.
Yeah.
Joe did say, if we wanted to test what people's thoughts were on the transfer station as far as hours and days, maybe we could do that. Police and fire really didn't have anything to suggest, and they've got very active Facebook pages where they interact with the public pretty regularly. The library has done their own, and the seniors would do their own, I think, as needed. I did talk about, I get comments at my coffees about zoning quite a bit, which would be the planning board. And I asked Erica if the planning board was still thinking or planning on getting started on the master plan after town meeting, and she said they were. And so that would be an opportunity for them to be doing surveys of certain things, whether it's just a zoning or whatever. And then one of the folks thought there might be some questions about town hall hours, you know, how people feel about town hall or interaction with town hall. And Jeff, although he's not technically part of my staff, Jeff was there as well. He lives in West Boylston, and he talked about survey that they did in West Boylston, which encompassed senior center, fire, and EMT, EMS, sorry, if I wrote that down correctly. So that's really the kind of scope, I guess, that, you know, the feedback that I've gotten from the staff. And I do know that specifically in Lincoln and Carlisle, there were surveys done, and that those were done as part of a subcommittee of a long-range planning committee. And that they had, I think both of them had at least, one had 3 people on the subcommittee. I don't honestly remember how many were on the other one. So that's the ground I've been able to cover on that up to this point.
Well, I think it sounds that, you know, we have a number of things that were fairly well covered. We have some other groups in town that, you know, if for specific issues, you know, they may or may not want to do a survey. I think at this juncture, I mean, I still don't see anything that's pressing where we need to ramp up and do some, you know.
Yeah, I'll go back to my usual comments about surveys, is that I don't see anything that's worth spending money on to make sure it's demographically representative.
At this time.
At this time.
Yeah.
There's nothing worth spending money on, and I don't think just putting something out there is useful.
Right. I think Jonathan's, I don't want to speak for Jonathan, but I think part of his belief was that this wasn't going to, either it wasn't going to cost money or it was going to cost a minimal amount of money to do. I can't really speak to that because I haven't gone into that level of detail. I do know that of the various towns that I spoke with, none of them had the town administrator doing it themselves. That, you know, where they were done, there was a subcommittee doing it, and what I'm seeing so far is tied to,
Right.
as I said, long-range planning.
Right.
But, you know, I'm not saying I won't do it. I can't say that I won't do it. All I'm saying is, you know, this is what I've learned up to this point.
Right.
I think maybe at this juncture, since you know, the start of all this actually happened back when your last contract negotiation, and as we discussed previously, this was something that, you know, 2 selectmen somewhat inserted into your contract as a goal at the last moment during the 3-month gestation period of getting your contract out. And certainly I'm not adverse to doing a survey if, you know, if there's a particular topic or a need where we need to gather information from townspeople. But I think, you know, I appreciate you bringing it to our attention, but I think at this point, let me float a motion and see if this works for you. You know, I think I make a motion that I think that, you know, surveys are important when the need arises. We have an avenue for us to do it or Don, or, as he mentioned, various boards and committees or subcommittees to do that. But I think in regards to Don's contract and a goal that was specifically tied to his contract, which would be specifically tied to his performance review, I appreciate the fact that you took the lead in bringing this up. We've had the discussion, but I would like to make a motion that at this point in time, we relieve Don of that particular goal, since there's no survey that we seem to have necessary. But at some point in time, if there is a survey that needs to be done, a decision can be made as to whether or not the Board of Selectmen initiate whatever survey, or whether it's more appropriate for some board or committee or subcommittee that's formed to perform a survey of some kind. But I think at this juncture, I think that particular goal should be removed from, I think that goal is satisfied from the fact that we don't have a need for a survey at this point in time, and I'd like that be removed from Don's list of goals in his contract, and that will not be reflected negatively in his next performance review.
I'm not sure what the motion is in all that.
I'll distill it down.
Yeah.
We relieved Don of the need to do a survey specifically tied to a performance goal in his contract, and that we will revisit the need to do some survey, whether it be by us, by Don, or some other board or entity at some future date when the need arises.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I realize that it's, people can forget what's in a contract, and that I thought it was important that I bring it up, because I wasn't sure anybody other than I even remembered it. So, and again, knowing also that I do have a performance evaluation coming up, I didn't want to avoid it, you know, if it needed to be done, I'd do it. I remember back when I was, first had to renew my contract, looking for my second contract, I sent an email to the board reminding everyone that about the 6-month clause, that with 6 months left of my contract, if I hadn't been notified, if I hadn't been told that it wasn't being renewed, it automatically rolled over for 1 year. And the selectmen were 3 for 3. None of them remembered that that clause was in there. So I learned way back when that, you know, I just think it's important to remind people what's in my contract, which is why I did that.
All right, so the motion on the table has been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
All right.
you're 1 goal lighter.
Thank you. Wish I was 1 pound lighter. That's all I have under my report, unless the board has any questions for me.
No. Does anyone have any public service announcements?
I have no public service announcements, but I'm wondering if we could, on a future agenda, discuss the contract and my own terminology to address things in the contract that should be re-examined on behalf of the town.
You mean my contract?
Yes, your
Oh,
contract.
okay.
Well, I think that would have to be done in executive session.
It still has to be on an agenda, and I'm just asking that I don't, yeah, if it has to be done in executive session, that's fine. I would just like to have that start being addressed.
It needs to be done in executive session. It also needs to be mutually agreed upon by both parties, but I would have no issue agreeing to that without even knowing what you want to talk about. I'm more than happy to do it.
Okay, so we'll put that on as a future item.
Okay. Do you want it for the next meeting, or?
Well, when is the 6th month?
Oh, that's December.
That's
December 31st.
Okay, so December, the clock, so we have to notify Don on or before December, whatever it is.
And if there's something that's in the contract, I mean, I'm not pushing it out to December, I'm just answering the question that was asked.
Right, I'm just, from the standpoint of timing, so we have to notify Don whether or not we have an intention of wanting to enter into contract negotiations.
By the end, December of this year, I understand.
Right, and then the negotiations.
But if there are things you would like to discuss prior to that, then that's fine with me. I mean, I would do it February 28th if that's what you
Yeah,
want.
I mean,
So,
I'm just suggesting, do you want to do something that early, or?
Well,
do you want
I
something a
think
little
that's
bit-
what I want to discuss with all the selectmen. For example, in addition to this survey
you have to be
statute.
careful not getting into the nuts and bolts,
Yeah.
because that's not on the agenda for tonight.
Okay, there's other things in there that I think are, should be questioned, and would it be more effective if we had a new contract, for example, to start this July 1st?
Okay. So then,
Well, I think it'd be good to have it, bring up your concern, let's have that and we can discuss.
so we can put that on an agenda, and I will stipulate right now, I'm fine with doing that. And then that's the type of thing where you may discuss amongst yourselves without me in the room, and then bring me in. You know, I mean, we can work out the mechanics also, and I want to make sure you don't step in anything by getting in any specifics tonight.
Right.
But for the survey portion of your contract
Mhm.
that we've been discussing for the past couple of weeks, the first sentence of it is, within the first year of this agreement, this survey shall be completed. That was a year ago,
Mm.
okay? It wasn't done a year ago.
Mhm.
Another thing is, in a different part of your contract, it says, On or about March 1st of each year, the board shall expressly define the goals and objectives which they determine necessary for the proper operation of the town and attainment of the board's policy objectives. We didn't do that last year. So if we're not going to do this stuff, let's take it out and put in there stuff that we're actually going to do.
Okay, and I hear that, again, I'm just advising you, let's not get into the details tonight.
No, well,
That's the kind of stuff I want to discuss with the other selectmen about, is it appropriate to take this step forward?
Mhm.
We may have this executive session and decide we're good until we have to make a decision in December,
Mhm.
but I want to have a discussion about, is this appropriate?
Okay.
Yep.
I have no issue with that at all.
okay, you had indicated that the 28th may be a pretty heavy meeting.
It will be a pretty heavy meeting, yeah.
I mean,
All right, well,
maybe we do it the meeting after. I mean,
Yeah.
Something
Okay.
like
Yeah.
March.
The March, we're on March 7th and the,
Okay.
It's not a fire drill. We don't
Okay.
have to hurry
Cool.
it.
Okay.
we have March 7th and the 21st in March.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right, next up is a review of the first draft of the 2018 Board of Selectmen's annual report. I had circulated a draft of really just talking points at the last meeting. I did flesh that out, and there's a copy here. Perhaps since we don't have all three members of the board, perhaps you might want to just, take it home and peruse it.
Is that okay?
Well, I got here a little early and I read it before the meeting started. I have a couple of minor, what I call edits for clarity. And after that, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
Basically, the biggest thing for me is that it starts off, the second sentence is, there are a number of positive events that we will report, and then the next sentence is, there were a number of highlights.
Okay, well, like I said, it's just a draft.
Okay, so,
I'll
change one of those
I can
words,
fix it.
and
Yep.
I think you've got to work on some agreement of the tenses through the document, and that's all. I don't have any substantial
Okay.
changes.
Okay. I'll fix that, and a lot of it, some of it I did the other day, and the rest of it I did this afternoon, so, since I did not get anything
But in
else.
terms of substance, I'm comfortable with everything that's there.
Okay, good, okay. All right, so actually what I'll do is I'll make that change, I'll go through it one more time. Linda will circulate an electronic
Yeah.
copy, so if you want to,
Okay.
mark it up with track changes, that's fine,
Okay.
so. But I think I captured, most of the salient
Yeah.
points.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, all right. And next is a review of the draft letter to the zoning board of appeals regarding the Still River Commons.
So, I tried to take as much as possible from the conversation from the previous meeting. Much of what's here are comments from the audience that the Board of Selectmen concurred with. So I thought it was a pretty good starting point. I did hear from Jonathan, and Jonathan was okay with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, I think basically, we say at the front, we don't support it, we say at the back, we don't support it, and we want the...
And in the middle, we substantiate why.
Why? So I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. One thing that occurred to me as I was reading this is a different aspect of the whole project. And I'd like to just bring it out and see if it's appropriate to include it, or if it's going to be distracting. And that is that part of this project is affordable housing. The reason I think that that's relevant in this issue is if we were to see someone build a house in the middle of, on an island out in a river, you'd have to be a really wealthy person to deal with all the preventative issues that you're going to have in terms of the water rising, in terms of things that could happen in the winter. And here we're putting affordable housing in basically someplace that's almost in flowing water. And I think in most cases, people who are taking advantage of affordable housing don't have the resources to deal with dramatic water problems, like someone who's decided to build a house in a river. Does that make sense so
No,
far?
I understand what you're saying.
And so, that's another aspect of this, is it defeats the whole point of putting affordable housing here if the costs to maintain it are gonna be such that it's gonna put financial stress upon the people living there.
But I think the same could be said for the non-affordable as well.
No, it could, but it wouldn't be true for a different location.
Well, true, but whether it's affordable or not affordable, I think your points are all valid, but I think the individuals who buy the market rate will have the same issues of straining their income to maintain or deal with issues. So they both have the issues are potentially more severe for...
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't someone who's in affordable housing in that project be in a different income bracket than people who are buying it at market price?
Yes, but both groups will have unforeseen expenses.
Right.
And you don't know whether or not someone who buys the market unit is stretched to the max.
No, you don't know, but also the people in the affordable units will have to bear the same, I assume, the same share of any additional expenses as the people in the more expensive units.
Yeah.
My point is, this is a 40B. It's a 40B because it's got affordable housing in it. But it defeats the whole purpose of having affordable housing if you're putting these families under that kind of, or potentially putting families under that kind of
I
strain.
think what you're saying is the affordable units don't become so affordable if you've got all these ancillary expenses because of issues that come with the location.
Right, and
I think
it effectively defeats the whole purpose of this being a 40B.
But I still say the impact may be less, but the impact is still there for the market rate units. And I don't know whether, I mean, I think all this other stuff.
I don't disagree with you, I just think that that's irrelevant. The justification for this project is that it's a 40B.
Well, that's the only way he can build it.
That's right, all right? So he's putting affordable housing in where anybody who takes advantage of affordable housing is going to be stressed far more than if they got an equal unit for the same price.
There's no
different
argument, Bob, no argument. But I'm not sure that really, I mean, it's all the other points of all the units have this problem. I mean, if you want to add something, that's fine.
So my question is, would that be relevant to the reviewing body?
I don't want to speak for the reviewing body. I don't want to anticipate that. I suspect not.
Okay.
Only because they're looking at the merits. They have to look at the merits of the site, you know, and other issues relative to the site and what our objections are really based on the site. And because the applicant would not, I'm sure, would not acknowledge that there will be ancillary costs. You know, it's our opinion, but you know, that opinion would probably be vigorously debated by the applicant. So,
Well, are they looking for more waivers than other 40Bs in the area?
I have no idea. Don't know. But, so I think that's, well, it's a valid argument. I'm not sure that
It
it's
would be a
applicable.
distraction.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
So we shouldn't put it in there.
All right. I'm fine with the letter. So, do I have a motion to accept the letter and execute?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And just to anticipate, you may have the same question Jonathan had. He asked if this would be the same letter that we would send to the state if and when it's applicable. If the ZBA were to deny the application, and if there was an appeal to the state, would this be the same letter? And I felt either this or extremely similar. You know, it would also go to the state, and it wouldn't go to mass housing per se, as some people have said. It would actually go. There's an appeals board, and it would go to the appeals
Okay,
board.
we were talking about using the letter that Acton sent.
Mhm.
Have you reviewed that letter?
Oh, I reviewed it.
And this is similar?
It's not so much, because what, that letter that Acton sent, that was when they were looking for, when the developer was looking for site approval. It was much earlier in the process than where we are now. So I did read it over, there were some interesting points that maybe we could, you know, if we have some similar points, I'd look to incorporate them, but I think really, I think the gist of it would be this.
Okay.
It was a very well-written letter, it was like four pages.
Or something similar with that attached to show that we've actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so do you have a copy
Yeah.
of this?
Yeah, right here.
And then I'll just have Jonathan come in and sign it.
Yeah, it was an extremely well-written letter by Acton.
Do we have minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Do you just need a motion to, can we do a consent?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Agenda.
listed them right there, so you can just.
I move we accept the minutes of regular sessions on July 6th and January 10th, December 6th, 2018, January 10th, 2019, and the executive session of December 6th, 2018.
I'll second that.
Go ahead. I thought I was leading. Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Just don't have the same rhythm we normally
There
have.
you go.
Here's your beacons. You take those with you.
Oh.
Oh, the highlight of my day.
Oh.
And I have briefed each of the three of you as to where we are relative to the executive session discussion point, but if you think that there's value in the two of you going into executive session with me, then by all means.
Maybe just for a moment or so. So I think if there's no other Board of Selectmen business, we will be moving into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for the police union, as the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the board's bargaining position, and we will not reemerge into open session.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Sikansky?
Aye.
Wasaki?
Aye.